This question comes from the Discord, and it asks, what if, upon arriving in Westeros, the first men encountered Ent-like creatures like the ones from Lord of the Rings instead of children of the forest? Okay, why not? 12,000 years before Aegon's conquest, the first men migrated to Westeros through a land bridge called the Arm of Dawn. They encountered a vast land of rolling hills, beautiful meadows, and dense forests. But one thing they didn't encounter was other humans, or things that even resembled humans. This was a seemingly empty land. The only evidence that there once might have been life were strange trees with faces carved into them. They began establishing settlements as they expanded ever deeper into this strange new land. They also began to cut down the strange weirwood trees, but this would provoke a devastating reaction. For the woodsmen of the deep forest spoke of strange voices in the winds, and trees getting up and moving by themselves. Naturally, these stories were disregarded, but they would soon be proven right. For soon after, trees seemingly began to sprout arms and legs and began attacking first men's settlements, and thus the war between man and tree began. Now, during the early stages of the war, it seemed that the trees had a rather distinctive advantage over the humans. They were far taller, far stronger, and far more durable than men. A single one of these great trees could destroy an entire settlement by themselves, but the first men would not be beaten so easily, for they had their own advantages, mainly their numbers and their adaptability. The first men began to isolate these great trees, and then using ropes and grappling claws they pushed them over, before descending upon the helpless tree with axes, where they would quite literally carve the tree up. Fire became a particular favourite weapon for the first men, for wood burns. In fact, the first men would burn entire forests in order to root out these great trees. As the war continued to drag on, the first men continued to expand ever further north, and it is here that they would encounter something equally as strange as the great trees, mainly giants. Now, at first these timid creatures avoided the first men, but eventually the two sides found an accord. After much effort, the first men figured out how to speak to the giants, and the giants told the first men of the history of Westeros and the history of the trees. They were called Weir-walkers, ancient beings. They were the spirits of the rivers and the meadows. They were the protectors of the forests. They were the ancient gods of Westeros given physical form, and their most sacred duty was to protect the weirwood trees. In fact, these Weir-walkers had only begun to attack the first men after they desecrated these sacred trees. The giants also spoke of another race which once inhabited Westeros, a race that was similar to humans but the size of children, and who possessed vast amounts of knowledge. Some giants claimed that these children were the creators of the Weir-walkers, but the giants also claimed that these children had long since fled into the far north, but none could say for certain why. Some giants claimed that the Weir-walkers turned against the children. Others claimed that the children foresaw the arrival of the first men and the destruction they would bring with them. However, this new information changed nothing. The war between the first men and the Weir-walkers continued, even while it started to snow. A terrible winter descended upon Westeros, blanketing the landscape in snow and ice and shrouding the skies in darkness. As the snows grew heavier and the nights grew darker, lords began to freeze to death within their own halls, as small folk began to perish by the thousands. Even the mighty Weir-walkers struggled in this great winter, but all of this was nothing compared to what was to come, as from out of the darkness rode death. As from out of the lands of always winter, the others, the White Walkers, had come, bringing with them death. Facing certain annihilation, the first men and the Weir-walkers, who had drowned for so long in each other's blood, finally set aside their differences, forming an alliance to defeat the night and bring back the dawn. The Weir-walkers and the first men clashed with the White Walkers and their undead armies. Eventually, after much bloodshed and much destruction, the White Walkers were finally defeated and driven back to the lands of always winter. Sensing this terrible enemy would one day return, the first men constructed a great wall to keep them out. Many Weir-walkers aided in the construction of this this great wall. Many more allowed themselves to be entombed within the wall, where they would slumber and wait for the day that the White Walkers returned. Many more made the ultimate sacrifice, disregarding their physical bodies, so that their spirits would become one with the wall, enchanting it in order to keep the White Walkers from crossing. After the completion of the wall, the first men and the Weir Walkers finally made peace. The first men would stick to the towns and cities, and the Weir Walkers would remain in the forests. The first men continued to expand and thrive as they formed many kingdoms within Westeros. During this time, the first men also began to revere the weirwood trees, and began to take the old gods of Westeros as their own. Because of this, the first men began to revere and even worship the Weir Walkers as the living embodiments of the old gods. They left offerings to the Weir Walkers in the hopes that their homes would be blessed. However, despite this, the Weir Walkers began to decline and became ever more isolated and reclusive, for they did not reproduce, and because of these devastating wars their population had dwindled. It seemed that they were destined to fade into myth. However, one among them attempted to stop this. He was called Sapbeard and proclaimed himself as king of the forests and rivers. He began abducting humans and forced them to ingest saplings, so that new and strong trees would sprout from the bodies of these humans. He hoped that in doing this, the spirit of the human would fuse with that of the tree, so that new Weir Walkers might be born. It is not known if he ever succeeded. However, according to legend, a Stark of Winterfell named Brandon personally slew King Sapbeard in single combat, earning himself the title of Brandon Woodsbane. However, this time of peace would not last for long, as the Andals would soon invade Westeros. The Andals came with weapons of steel and a new god. During their invasions, they fought bloody battles and wars against the first men, and began carving out their own kingdoms within Westeros. The Andals viewed the first men as primitives who worshipped false gods. They sought to convert the first men to the faith of the Seven wherever possible. However, this did not extend to the Weir Walkers. The Andals considered the Weir Walkers to be abominations, the unholy creations of dark magic. The Andals would purge Westeros of this evil. The Andals mercilessly destroyed the Weir Walkers wherever they could find them, even establishing knightly orders specifically to hunt down Weir Walkers, such as the Order of the Wooden Stars. The Weir Walkers were far too weak to fight back, and although many first men fought alongside them, it was of no use. The remaining Weir Walkers were decimated. A few survivors attempted to flee into the far north, where they would find some safety with the Starks. However, eventually many of these survivors would continue heading north beyond the wall into the lands of Always Winter, in order to escape from men entirely. The few remaining Weir Walkers in the south attempted to cross the Arm of Dawn back into Essos, for we must remember, without the Children of the Forest, the Arm of Dawn would not have been destroyed, but the Weir Walkers who fled to Essos would not find peace there either, for they would soon encounter a foe far worse than any previous one. They would encounter the rising Valyrian Freehold, who captured these Weir Walkers and took them back to the Valyrian Peninsula to be experimented upon. The Valyrian Freehold would continue its relentless expansion westwards, where they would eventually encounter the Arm of Dawn, where they would cross, invading Westeros and subjugating many of the Andal kingdoms, establishing colonies along the eastern coast of Westeros. These colonies would eventually form into their own free cities and join with their sisters across the narrow sea. But alas, I think we're getting a bit off topic, and I think that I've done my best to answer the original question. Now, was this a bit of an odd video? Yes. Was the concept for this video a bit strange? Yes. But was this video fun to make? Absolutely. So if you have your own what if scenario, can be a bit of a fun one like this one was, or can be a more serious one like my one about Daenerys, then feel free to send me your idea on my Discord, link can be found in the description, and if you don't have Discord, then send it to me in a comment. But until I see you all again, thank you very much for watching. I have been the War Master's Tavern, and may you spend a half hour in heaven before the devil knows you're dead.